Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel Peeler Trades again. So, hey, in this video, I want to go over some of the basics to help you get started. Some of the things that maybe nobody talks about. Some of the things that maybe you might have some questions on how to get that ball rolling, right? So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, when it comes to picking a brokerage account, honestly, I focus on these there's four main ones over here that you see: Vanguard, M1, Robinhood, Webull, right? So Webull, they do a lot of chart readings, right? It's a little bit more advanced. You see a lot of charts, and you have it's very options friendly if you're trying to buy in bulk, right? So I'm not going to talk too much about Webull. Honestly, I just look at Webull to look at some of these stocks and how they're doing on the charts. Robinhood, I use Robinhood to it's a little bit more gamified, right? Robinhood has that confetti every time you buy a stock. It's very user friendly, very easy going, right? And they make it easy for you to set up those recurring binds, right? Fire and forget, which is what M1 does as well, right? M1, they do a lot of pie investing. That's what they call it, pie investing. Think about it kind of like a basket. You know, you always hear this analogy in the investing world about using basket of stocks, right? And that's what M1 does, right? They have this like basket. You can build multiple baskets within your portfolio for a more targeted experience or more targeted investing. And Vanguard, I mean, Vanguard's been in the business for a long time, very reliable. It's the first account I opened, right? And so I'm a big fan of it. But today we're gonna focus on M1. The one thing I do want to point out is that I'm not going to walk you through on how to open up an account. It's kind of like opening up an account in a bank, right? You don't want people overlooking your PII, right? Your personal information. But it's very easy, very straight to the point type of questions, right? And some of those questions, if you don't know what it is, you can always Google it, or you can always, just DM me and I'll point you in the right direction. But honestly, it's very straightforward, very straight to the point, and it should be questions that you already know about yourself. M1 also has a great section where you can do your own due diligence, right? You can do your own research. You can look at the top companies, and it's very easy as just typing in a name. For example, we can type in O, right? And you get Realty Income. And then from there, you can look at the chart. You can look at, what it's done over the last 5 years, what it's done over the last year, 1 month, 1 day, right? It tells you what the current price is, market cap, PE ratio, EPS. It tells you prices to sales, the dividend, which is, usually the one I go for most of the time, and it's beta, right? You can just, if you twist your phone, it'll expand the chart so you can look at it a little bit more closely. It tells you what the previous close was, right? Which is the last price that the stock or ETF closed at. So this previous close should be today, if I'm not mistaken, right? This is what it opened at, the one that says today's open, and then it gives you the range. Then it tells you what analysts are saying that the stock is going to move within that day. So they're saying on the low end 52.29, on the high end 52.68, right? And in the 52-week range, same thing. In a 52-week period, it tells you it's looking like it might go as low as 45.04 on the high range, 64.18, and it's a very important measure to look at whenever you're looking for long term. The whole borrowing against, we're not going to get into that. That's a little bit of an advanced step. So this is talking about a margin loan, right? So different brokers, they will lend you money depending on the value of your portfolio, and they will charge you a maintenance, right? So I know, for example, I've never done it before. I've tried dabbling in it, as in like I've tried looking at the information, but right now it's just not the best time to borrow, right? Anything for that matter, because the interest rates are going to be high. But essentially, for like a good rule of thumb, you might hear some brokers do, hey, we'll lend you 4-to-1, right? So if you got like $1,000, we'll lend you $4,000, and then you just pay the loan back every month, right? So if you're able to make that money back in dividends and it covers that payment, and you should be good to go. So long as you don't fall below a certain threshold. And then if you keep going down, so we're not going to get into that. Honestly, I give you like a little brief thing, but or from what I understand of what I've looked at when it comes to margin loans. But again, we're not going to go into margin loans. Profile, if you hit profile, it's just going to give you kind of like a description of the company, its current information like CEO, employees, where it's headquartered here. With this one, it's San Diego. It tells you what exchange it trades on. So this one is the New York Stock Exchange, outstanding shares, and what kind of issue type, right? So just basic information on whatever stock you want. You can click on the news. It tells you what categories is in. So this is in the finance, real estate, and stocks. And then from here you can add it to your portfolio, right? So that's a pretty neat thing that M1 has. We can just look at the information. You can just look up whatever stock, whatever ETF you're looking for. So once you establish your brokerage account, which I have named mine Base Account, you can start adding stocks, right? You can start adding funds. You can start adding anything you want. The good thing I like about M1 is that, again, it gives you that pie approach. So as you can see, I have 4 different pies. So whenever I deposit any money, it'll balance them out equally to 25%, right? So 25% of my funds will go to the lazy pie, and then cover calls, and 25 to the weekly, and then 25 to the REITs. But the pie I want to emphasize a lot more than the other ones, right? So there's three of my pies that are a little bit more on the advanced side, right? They're a little bit more targeted. But the one I want to talk to you guys about is the lazy pie. So let's go into the lazy pie, right? So this one has ETFs, and they're all Vanguard, right? They're all Vanguard ETFs. So Vanguard puts out its own version of these ETFs, right? So let's look at VOO, VOO. So this is Vanguard's S&P 500 ETF. Remember, ETF stands for Exchange Traded Fund. All it is just a basket of stocks, right? It's just instead of investing into Apple or Microsoft, right? And then tomorrow those companies they go bankrupt, then you're pretty much shit out of luck when it comes to your money, right? So what an ETF does is that it'll focus on a basket of stocks, so that if, let's say in this one specifically, S&P 500, you have the top 500 companies in the United States. S&P stands for Standard & Poor, and I mean, it was created, I don't know, like 100, 200 years ago, I'm not sure, but it is very old, and this ETF updates with the strong, or the most successful, the biggest, I think it's biggest by market cap in the United States, in the stock market in the United States. So investing into this ETF will ensure you have your money invested into the top 500 companies in the United States. Now, if you go back to my lazy portfolio, the next one up will be VYM, right? And again, this is another ETF, and this all focuses on the high dividend yield companies, right? So every company that's going to be in this ETF, it's going to be on the high dividend yielding side, right? It's going to be the high dividend payers, right? And that's pretty much what this ETF focuses on. And then we get to VNQ, right? So VNQ is another ETF that has that real estate focus, right? So VNQ, when it comes to real estate, I'm gonna be honest, real estate is one of my favorite sectors. I feel like it's, even with the market cycles, in the long run, you're gonna win, right? I'm not a fan of owning physical real estate. I'm not a fan of the horror stories that I've heard when it comes to tenants. When it comes to the destruction of your property, right? I'm not a fan of it. Even though it is very high reward, it's also very high risk. So with this ETF, we can mitigate some of that risk, right? Because even though you're still exposed to some of the risks of the stock market, the real estate market, you minimize that exposure to tenants, exposure to possibility of property destruction. Right, so even though this ETF is still exposed to market cycles like we see today, right? Interest rates are up, real estate takes a hit, It's not the best time to, I don't want to say own, because it is a great time to own. You're buying everything cheap. It is not the best time to sell, right? Because remember, you want to buy low, sell high if that's your thing. But in this video, we're focused on the long term. So with a long-term mindset, we're gonna buy into this ETF while it's low, or while it's low, so that by the time it goes up, we are capitalizing on those gains as well as that dividend. And last but not least, in this lazy pie is VUG, right? This is Vanguard's ETF that looks into growth, right? So all these companies here are going to be focused on that growth, not so much on the dividend, but they will be focused on growth, right? So with a healthy mix of growth, dividend growth, and high dividend payers, you can build a portfolio that not only is it going to be paying you dividends, those dividends are going to grow in time. And then if you add a little bit of VUG, which just focuses on growth, it's going to ensure your portfolio, it's going to grow over time, because that's the focus of this ETF, right? And again, all these are baskets of stocks, and all these are managed by people that are looking at this information all the time, right? And it has that Vanguard trust, that Vanguard, brand that you want, right? Because you want that trust. And again, they've been in the game for a long time. Very trustworthy company. Again, guys, if some of the things I'm talking about doesn't make sense, you're more than welcome to comment, DM, reach out to me, and I'll be more than happy to explain it, right? So the one thing that comes to my mind off the top of my head is dividends, right? So dividends, it's like when you buy a stock, right? You are part owner of that company, right? So this company, as a reward or as like an enticement, they will pay their investors some of those profits back, right? And that's what a dividend is. Now, some companies though, like Apple, for example, right? They have a dividend, but it's not the biggest, right? And the reason why is because they want to put some of those profits back into the company for growth, right? A company like Apple, right? A company like Tesla, they're looking for growth, right? Homeboy is not gonna take us to Mars, or we're not gonna, colonize Mars if we give some of those profits back to the investor. No, that's not what he wants. He wants to make the companies forward his progress, and to get there, sadly, dividend paying to the investors is probably not going to help, right? So, but then, for example, there's companies like McDonald's, right? McDonald's is not looking to reinvent the burger. They're not going to reinvent the Big Mac, right? It's there, it's solidified, it makes money. So instead of putting that money back into the company, which is not as needed, right? They'll give that money back to the investors to kind of entice you to like buy more, right? A lot of people, what they do is they enable this option in their portfolios. It's called DRIP. It's like a program, right? I believe that's what it stands for, Dividend Reinvestment Program. And I always mess up the last letter, which is P. I don't know why, but anyways, the idea behind that is that if you get dividends from a company, you reinvest them automatically. So the next time that they pay you a dividend based on how many shares you own, it's going to be a little bit bigger, right? And then you reinvest those dividends again, and the next one's going to be bigger, so forth and so on. And they call that the snowball effect, right? And you're going to build over time a big position into whatever stock's paying you that dividend. So in this case, we are reinvesting the dividends, and you can see in this little chart, you can see that this portfolio has net cash, or this pie rather, has net cash flowed $4,009, almost $5,000, right? Market gain of $7.27 So that means that just on growth alone, we've made $727.31. Now, with the dividends that they gave us, or that this pie has given us, which is $2.9574 opened, we have a total gain of $1,023.05, and that translates to a 22.05%. So on average, if you just invest in the S&P 500, every year it should give you anywhere between 8 to 10%. On the lower end, 7%. On the higher end, maybe 11, 12, but averages out 8 to 10%. Right? So with these numbers, we can see that we're beating the S&P 500. And it makes sense because if you look at this pie, we have more than just the S&P 500, which is VOO, right? We have VYM, VNQ, and VUG, which should give us more dividends and more growth, right? The other thing I want you to pay attention to is the expense ratio. The expense ratio is the money that you're paying up, right? It's kind of like a fee for Vanguard or for M1 or for the fund managers to make sure that this is always right, that this is always correct, that this is always functioning the way it's supposed to. So you want that expense ratio to be as low as possible. Anything 0.0 whatever should be perfect, right? Anything below 0.09%, right? Once you get into that 0.10%, it's okay, now we're getting a little bit too expensive. So I know that a lot of my holdings do have well over, right? Like at 1%. I think I've seen one of them. I can't remember which one it was, but I mean, whoa, it's up there. But usually with higher expense, it means that people are doing more work to keep that dividend paying asset working. And that translates to a bigger dividend, right? So even though we're paying on the low end of 0.05% on the expense ratio, that dividend yield is not the best, right? It's not the greatest. It's not as big. It's only 1.96%, which is not bad, right? There certainly are bigger ones in the stock market, but this portfolio this pie is very safe, right? You can, if you're concerned about what stocks I should pick, what ETFs I should dump my money in, hey, this is a very, very solid starting point, right? You open up this account, you don't even have to build a pie. You can just have these 4 holdings in there and just equally set those percentages that you want your money to be invested. I'm not saying you should do the ones that I'm doing, but I'm doing, for example, VOO 40%, right? Because it's S&P 500. Then I'm doing 30% on VYM, 20% on VUG, the growth ETF. And then since real estate is not doing the hottest right now, I have it as low as 10%. Now, I'm not saying that you can do this or that you should be doing this. I've seen some people do anywhere between 60, 10, 10, 10, or 60, 20, 10, 10, or whatever. But it's up to you. It's up to what you want to do, right? For me, this is that long-term staple in my overall portfolio or across all my portfolios. This is the one that, if all else fails, at least I have some backup, right? At least I have this pie that I know that it's gonna make it in the long term. And honestly, that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, you don't have to get into cover calls. You don't have to get into the weekly dividend pie. You don't even have to get into the REIT pie, right? Honestly, so long as you just do with the lazy pie, right? And then once you move your money, you can do a recurring transfer, right? You set that up. You can do anywhere between 5 to 100 to however you feel comfortable every week, every month, whatever your budget allows it. Set that, remember, hit move money, set that recurring transfer, right? And then M1 will do everything for you. So long as you have, let's say you have these 4 holdings, 40% of those $20 is going to go into VOO, 30% is going to go into VYM, and so forth and so on, right? So it's just a matter of going into the app and setting it, right? The one thing I do want to point out is that M1 does have, I think, a minimum of $25 in your account before it will trigger any buys. So let's say that you do $10 a week right? So the first 2 weeks, it's probably not going to buy anything until that third week when it hits over that $25 mark. So just keep that in mind. So I'm not saying you should do 25 bucks, but I am saying that put it in $5 a week is better than not putting anything per week, right? The best advice I can give you is to start yesterday, right? Open up this account and start yesterday, right? Get the ball rolling, right? We're not getting any younger, and honestly, even if this doesn't, make you rich overnight, at least it's gonna guarantee you a better retirement, right? Or even if it doesn't guarantee you a better retirement, you can pass this on to your kids, right? It's gonna be a better tool for them, right? And maybe you can show them about this. You can show them like, hey, show them my videos, or maybe look at stocks together and learn with them, right? That way they can have that financial education that maybe you didn't have, that I know for a fact I didn't have, right? I'm learning everything as I go, right? And so that is the one thing that I do encourage, that I do, aside from these 4 recommendations and this lazy pie that I for sure put my name on it, I encourage you to open up an account and start investing. And so that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you found some value into this video. I know I'm not going into details in a lot of things, but I am trying to scratch the surface at least into some of these. The point here, the key takeaways is start investing, right? Whether it's for your retirement, whether it's for your kids' benefits, or you want to just save a little bit of money, or maybe you have some cash laying around. You don't know where to put it. You don't want to have it in the banks because the banks aren't going to give you anything. Throw it in one of these accounts, right? It's the lazy pie is the fire and forget. It's the milestone that you should be investing in, right? And it's that staple that will take your portfolio. Like I said, it's not gonna make you a millionaire overnight, but it will help out in the long run. It will help out with your retirement. It will help out with your kids, right? Or their future. So if you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, you found value into this video, hit that like button, subscribe and share, and if you have any more questions, comment, DM me, or if you want me to make a video on something a little bit more specific, maybe on dividends, maybe on ETFs, or maybe on those specific holdings that I have, hey, let me know. All right. Until next one, take care.